it again. We're going back to Omaha. And it's on to the College World Series Final. The 2015 National Champions.
And welcome into another edition of 1186, the podcast, the official podcast of the University of Virginia baseball program. I am Damon Dillman. It is Monday, April 28th, joined by Andrew Ramspacker, as always, and a friend of the program, a regular guest here on 1186, the podcast, Kevin McMullan, Coach Mac, joining us for another appearance here on the podcast. And Mac, let's talk about where things stand. We've got two games at home midweek games, because this weekend is final exams. And then you come back that final home stretch of the regular season before you advance into the postseason ACC tournament. You take 2 out of 3 this past weekend on the road at Georgia Tech. And now you're looking at 2 here at home. The 8:00 start at VCU doesn't sit well with Jeff White, but that's another story for another time. But regardless, where do you think stand right now with your team going into as we start to turn the calendar to May?
Well, I think we've made progress. I loved our weekend. You go on the road and you can win 2 out of 3 in this league is very, very refreshing this time of the year. Our guys played it like it was playoff baseball. They had the right mindset, and we had a chance to get out of there with 3 wins. And going on the road in this league and winning a series is important. And love how we competed, and proud of our guys. And now we go into this week. We play VCU tomorrow, and then Navy on Wednesday, and then exam break. So just keep playing playoff baseball until the season ends, and have the right mentality. And it was really impressive this weekend, and I look forward to the progress.
You mentioned that term playoff baseball, and it's been brought up a few times now. As you guys know where you stand, right? You guys know what's ahead of you and what you have to do to get into the NCAA tournament. This is the first time that your program has had to do this, and you've had success doing it. Obviously, the most famous one being 10 years ago, which ended with the national championship in Omaha. How do you launch that? Is that a spoken thing? Hey guys, playoff baseball. Do you bring it up? Is it assumed? Do the guys know where they are? Do you address it? How does that come to be within the team?
I think Brian addressed it a couple of weeks ago when we were at a boiling point and said, "Hey, listen, moving forward, we got to be real with you. We're playing playoff baseball. This is playoff baseball from this point forward, and it's the reality of the position we put ourselves in. And now we just got to have the right mindset, and every game matters. Plug in like it's playoff baseball." And I think the energy, the focus, I think it was there before. I think it's just a little bit crisper now, and that's the reality of the position we put ourselves in. And now we just got to keep our foot on the gas.
From a player, I know when we have you on, when we have Oak on, there's so much discussion about wanting to be a player-led program. In a situation like this, are you seeing guys emerge, step up, sort of set that tone, whether it's verbally or whether it's just the way they're going about their business, and just sort of they're the ones setting that playoff baseball tone here down the stretch?
Yeah, I think it is a player-run program. We obviously organize it and structure it, but it's their program, it's their team, and we're here to help them navigate that piece. But I think it's them taking over, whether it be performance, communication. Those are your best teams, are your player-led teams. And I think at some point when you get to the boiling point and we start talking about playoff baseball, then you hear them starting to talk about it a little bit. And I think it's just a reflection of the mindset of the head coach and how it's perceived by our players, and I think they've digested it, and it's been pretty urgent since those conversations.
One player whose name has come up when leadership is brought up, and has been Aiden Teal, as a guy who, vocally or example on the field has maybe kind of exemplified that a little bit. I want to ask you about him in the sense that he has certainly embraced his role over the last month or so now as that leadoff hitter in your lineup. Another home run in that finale down in Atlanta. He's really swinging the bat well, really playing well. It seems like over the years, you guys have have had like the traditional leadoff hitter. You've had a power guy in that slot. I remember when Mike Pappy was a leadoff hitter. How do you approach that leadoff hitter position? And is that something that is sometimes maybe overthought in different circles, that it has to fit inside a box? How do you guys look at it? Do you evolve with it from team to team?
I think we evolve from team to team based on the production. Obviously, the energy he brings and his mentality is the right way. He's made progress in that role. I think we've been successful when he's been in that leadoff spot. So that's part of it as well. But just his mentality and the way he shows up every day, and he's grateful and thankful for the game he's playing, and he pours everything into it. And I think that affects the rest of the guys in our lineup.
I mean, Damon and I, there's no secret. We're Philly guys. We talked about it with you before, but we've watched the last 2+ years Kyle Schwarber in that position, which is not a traditional leadoff guy. And this year, finally, he's back in a more of a traditional 4 spot for a power hitter. But how do you view a power hitter in that spot? Like we said, Mike Pappy in the past has been there. I remember you guys led off a super regional with him hitting a home run against Mississippi State that kind of got the place going. So how do you view sometimes when you have a guy with pop at that spot?
Yeah, it's difficult. It depends on the game dictates what you should do with the guy in the position at the time within the game.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Pappy had tremendous hand-to-eye contact. He had power. He had instinct to run the bases. A lot of those same things Aiden Teal has, and I think, there's a little bit of swing and miss in there at different times, but for the most part, the mentality is going to be right, and the effort is going to be exceptional. And now the execution, you have to deal with it based on what we think the numbers are. And when he's in that slot, it seems to be versus lefty or righty that we got a pretty good shot to win the game.
When we had Aiden on here, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, it was like we had one of you guys, one of the coaching staff on here, just the way he talked, the way his mentality, his approach as a not just as a coach, but his family. You have a history with his family, obviously between his dad and his brother, and having recruited him and knowing what he's endured in his time here, whether it's the injuries or trying to figure out his role, to see it all come together for him. How satisfying is that as a coach to see this is a guy who approached it the right way? He was talking about when he was on here about how he was happy to be the guy getting water splashed in his face in the dugout because he thought that's what the team needed that year, 2 years ago, that sort of spark in the dugout. But regardless of what that role might be, he has always embraced it. And now it seems to really be paying off for him. What's that like to watch that from your perspective?
Well, it's something you want to refer to his teammates and those younger players that are evolving in their particular roles. That, hey, listen, look at this guy. He came here a year early. He recovered from Tommy John. All he did was, what can I do for the team? How can I serve the group? And when you have that mentality, the game usually comes back to you. And he's talented enough. He's passionate enough. He has awareness. He can make adjustments. And it's always about the team. It's never about himself. So I think when that formula, it has effect on the rest of the guys he's with. And so he's been a leader since he's been here based on how he's gone about his business. And as he matured in the program, he's becoming a little bit more vocal. But his actions are the most important thing. You can say everything you want, but if your actions don't connect with your words, then people think you're a fraud. But his actions connect with those words, and so he has that capability to communicate and lead some of his teammates.
I think at this time last year, Henry Ford was well on his way to having one of the best, freshman seasons by anybody in a UVA uniform. This year, James Nunnally's numbers aren't going to be maybe that good, but man, he's really come on strong as that next first-year player that has become a big part of this team and this lineup. A 4-hit day over the weekend in Atlanta. Can you give us more about how he came here, his backstory, and what have you liked so far about him?
Well, first, he's very gifted hand-eye coordination-wise as a hitter. I think he pays attention to the game. He came in as a catcher. We committed him as a catcher. And as he evolved athletically, sort of like in the lines of Kyle Teal, like he can play multiple positions. So based on the dynamics of our roster, before he ever got here, we said, hey, you're going to play in the outfield. And, his high school senior year, he had to catch most of the time because the guy that was the everyday guy got hurt. And he went back there and served the team, So he's a gifted player, still learning at this level. I sat next to him last night on our flight home from Atlanta. And I asked him, I said, hey, tell me about this week. And he said, I felt like I knew what they were going to try to do to me because I'm getting more reps. I'm getting more aware. I'm getting more mature in my approach. And I think it's starting to pay off. And I said, well, it looked like that. It looked like the game was slower for you this weekend than it had been at different times. And part of that is the consistency of maybe playing more consistently instead of playing, a lefty-righty role. So that's baseball, and he's got the right mindset every day. He comes to the ballpark ready to play, and he wants to learn, and he's continuing to learn. When you pull him to the side and talk to him, he just listens and says, yeah, I understand. So he's been fun to coach. He's a great teammate, and he's continuing to get better and better.
What's that like is that like a light bulb moment? Like when a player tells you that, particularly a first year player, when they say, hey, it's kind of slowed down a little bit. What kind of goes through your mind when you hear that? Like, how is that like an exciting thing to hear that, and they volunteer that information to you?
I always think the game is the test, right? Mm-hmm. And you have these conversations in the cages, you have these conversations on the side, and then when you can see them take the test and it slows down, it's very refreshing, and it instills incredible confidence in that particular player. Obviously, James in this situation, but it's rewarding. They're listening to the teaches and the learns, and they're listening to their teammates. They're observing, and those are what the great players do. They do all those things, and then they serve the group first and foremost.
Going back to that whole concept of playoff baseball, there are some veteran guys in the lineup who maybe haven't had the season they were hoping to have, or got off to slow starts and are starting to come around now, heat up with the weather, but it's one of those cliches in baseball. Guys might be gripping the bat a little bit too tight. Is there credence to that cliche that maybe guys are trying to do too much, trying to put too much pressure on themselves, and not just letting it happen, letting the game come to them?
I mean, yeah, that's the difference between being able to start hot, start cold. But the reality of it, the game is really challenging. It's a lot like life, and it's not going to be perfect all the time. But if you stay on the grind and you serve the group, and a lot of times when those up and downs happen, it's usually personal pressure they put on themselves, or maybe their group around them, and it's tough to navigate because there is high expectations and there's pressure in that. I was a senior in college and thought I had to hit 800 and hit 25 home runs to get a chance at professional baseball, and all I really had to do was serve our team the best I could, and it would have slowed down. And I realized that as you mature, and now you're in this business, that hey, just you can only control what you can control, But the day of social media and everybody entitling these kids before it ever happens is part of their learn and growth window that they have to learn how to happen or learn how to handle, because as they move forward, those things are going to come up away from baseball, and they're going to have, hopefully they can reference back to these experiences and get better for it.
Can you, as a coach, can you tell when a guy, again, going back to the cliche, can you tell when a guy is gripping it a little too tight or putting too much on his plate?
Yeah, if you pay attention to your guys, but there's only certain words you're going to be positive. You're going to reinforce things. You're going to say, hey, I hope this guy doesn't get hot because the Wahoos might be special if this guy gets hot. You try to positively
plant the seeds.
We appreciate where you're at. We appreciate where you're going, and that's the most challenging thing in our sport is to hit the round ball square with the round bat. And when you force things, or you have doubt, or you're not clear in what you're doing, it reflects in your production. So I do like some of the guys that have made adjustments. We're making progress, and it's the right time of the year for these guys to get better.
Yeah, I mean, Harrison did it with, I think, 3 home runs now in the last 2 ACC weekends. where have you seen him start to maybe, get back to that Harrison Didewick we saw, particularly last season?
Well, there's two things about Diddy that are constant: effort, and he cares about the team all the time. I think where he has released some of the stuff that was said about him, he's trying to play hard. He's trying to serve the team. Where early on, I think he was trying to do too much. And, I think the production has gotten better and better because he is serving the group better. And I think his mentality has got clarity to it, and it's progressing. So it's been fun to watch. Challenging early for him, and they're for him, picking him up, challenging him. And just keep sharing the same message that it's about us. Don't worry about you. You just keep doing your thing and getting better, and it'll come back to you. So it's starting to come back to him a little bit. And I said to him the other day, third base, I said, don't let Harrison Didewick get hot. These scary Cavaliers down the stretch here.
It's a good point, right? Because that's a guy that coming into the season, right? He's your 4-hole guy. He's your middle lineup guy. He's slid down a little bit because of the early performance. But if he does get hot and he's progressing that way now, look how much better that makes that lineup.
Yeah, he's worked his tail off. He's continuing to work for the group, and it comes back to you. And sometimes everybody wants it to happen yesterday. It's a tough sport. And I'm just really proud of how he's handled himself, and he continues to compete and give a credit about the team.
It reminds me of, was it 2021, Alex Tappan. Remember, he got off to a really slow start, and then by ACC tournament and postseason, he's getting some big hits. When you have examples to point to, and especially like we were joking about it a little bit before we started recording, but you've been doing this for a long time, and it like, not to make light of it, but it sounds like sage wisdom coming from you when you've been around the game for as long as you have. How has maybe your messaging evolved as you've been around the game longer, and especially in this role longer?
Yeah, I think it depends on the guy, and what his needs are more so than my messaging. But my messaging will always be serve the group, make sure you take care of the game, make sure you're taking care of yourself. And please tune out the outside noise, get off social media, get off those things, and just work for us, and when you do that, and Tap did the same thing. He tried to do too much too soon, made some adjustments, and he got hot at the right time for us. Hopefully that's Harrison Didewick moving forward. And I don't think there's anything you can say other than just be there, support him, love him, challenge him, and continue to have high standards for him every day. And at some point, it'll turn.
So I'm going to pivot here a little bit and put you on the spot a little bit. But when we had Oak on here a couple of weeks ago, it was right after he hit the 900 win plateau as a head coach. And this year is obviously the 10-year anniversary of the national championship, but it's also the 10-year anniversary of when you got to wear the big hat, so to speak, for a couple of games. And Andrew and I, we often like to reminisce about all this stuff, but we were wondering what you remember about when you got that opportunity. Oak had the little incident in Blacksburg and had to sit out a couple of games. What was it, 4 games? And so you got to be the head coach for 4 games, and you've got a couple of wins at UVA too. Maybe not 900 yet, but you've got a couple of wins. What do you remember about those? It was Towson, right, Andrew? Towson, who you beat when you came back here. And do you have any fond memories of? I remember you were on point in your post-game press conference after that Towson.
I have no record.
Well, you know what we're talking about, right?
I knew what happened in Blacksburg, but I don't even recall who we played. I just was doing my part of my responsibility for the group. I have no idea who.
Well, I wanted to point it out because when you look, I looked it up here before we started. There's no mention of your 4 games as a head coach in the media guide. It's an egregious omission, right?
I don't know if I don't think it was 4 games. I thought back then it was 2 games.
No, it was the last 2 games in Blacksburg, and then you came home midweek game against Towson, and then the first game against Florida State.
And you won the game against Florida State, by the way.
Your first career ACC head coaching win.
Yeah, well, Turn the page. Let's go to the next subject. Oh, goodness gracious. I don't remember. I remember Blacksburg. I don't remember anything after that.
As you look back, though, I mean, we are coming up on exactly 10 years, right? Since that magical run, through Omaha and to the national championship with your team. Obviously, we had a big event, back in January where all those guys were back in town, which was a really cool thing to be a part of, to hear their stories, hear where they are now, things like that. What did you take away from being there that night, hearing these guys talk about their memories, but not only their memories here, but like what this place did, and what being around this program and this university has done for their life, 10 years later?
Yeah, it's very rewarding to listen to their growth, through their eyes. I think there's some young men that were in that room that night that came in as boys and left as men.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the things as a coach, I know, influenced me as a player, being around men like that continue to have high standards and challenge you every day to be better than you were the day before. So to hear those guys share and be grateful and thankful for their experience through our program, I think is why you coach. You want to win games, you want to do all those things. Those are part of the process. But like to hear them from when they came in, and then they talk about 300s and how they can still wake up this day and think about, they hadn't slept the night before. But that's part of you're going to be in a job someday where you're going to have to do an all-nighter, and you're going to have to be prepared for that. And so to hear those stories, that's why you coach. You try to influence guys to be a little bit better each day and serve others. And so to hear those guys through their experience is really, really rewarding as a coach, but really fun that they're making an impact in their own communities because of part of their experience here in our baseball program.
And obviously there's natural lessons, from that particular season of 2015 that could be applied not just to baseball, but to life, to work, to all these things where things might look bleak, but if you kind of keep working at it right, it'll turn out for you. The game will reward you, as you guys like to say a lot. For you personally, what did that year and that run do for you, and what has that 10 years later, how has that maybe helped your perspective of different things, and maybe not just baseball, but just everything?
I think that no matter what happens, if you keep going, I said it at that time, just think of the stories you're going to be able to tell when it gets turned around. So a little bit of this year, it's not more so physical injuries that have happened here. It's just guys getting they're not playing as good as they want, but to have that in your back pocket or your experience and just saying, hey, keep plugging away. And we're still in it right now. And we're still sending the same message that show up, plug in, make sure you're doing your part, and the game rewards you. The game knows. And so if you keep doing the right things and you keep fighting, that someday you'll be able to tell the story of, or you'll have that experience to share with someone else, or your kids, or your wife, or your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, and say, hey, this is the story, and I've experienced before, so I know it can happen. So I think those are the beautiful things that, you can share moving forward. I do with my own children, I never give them the names of our players, but I share a lot of the experiences we go through, just so they have some of their life experiences other than the ones growing up at our house or just playing in the community.
Not to get too deep into the weeds on it, but I'm just curious, when did you know going back to 2015, when did you know? Was there a point where, obviously, like you said, you just keep going, you just keep moving forward, but was there a point in that season where you kind of got the sense that, hey, this is starting to all come together at the right time? I think we might actually have a shot here.
Yeah, I think the last weekend at North Carolina, we went down there and we had to win 3 games to get to 500 in the league. And historically, if you got 500 in our league, you're going to the tournament. So that's when you could feel it coming on that Saturday where things are going your way. They're hitting rockets. We're at people, and our balls are starting to land in spaces there's nobody at. So I think that weekend it started to feel that way, and then we got some guys back, and obviously you got to have outstanding performances by individuals. And I think in that postseason, I think we pitched 6 or 7 guys that were outstanding, and Joe McCarthy got back and was healthy, and I think it made a huge difference in our lineup. And yeah, that's an incredible story. But it's reality. If you keep plugging away and keep doing things the right way, it'll come back to you.
All right. Well, that seems like a pretty good place to wrap things up this week. Mac, want to thank you as always for taking the time to join us. For Mac, for Andrew, I am Damon. Thanks for joining us here on 1186, the podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, man. Great to see you all.